Welcome everybody to this year's UNEC celebration of the International Day of Forests. Our session today is entitled Forests for Sustainable Lifestyles and a Circular Economy. And we will focus on two main themes, fashion and packaging, excuse me. So the next 2 hours we will dedicate to fashion, and then this afternoon, starting from 2 o'clock, we will have another panel focusing more on packaging. As you know, many events around the world celebrate forests today, be it local actors, national associations, or international organizations such as the FAO in Rome, the UN Forum on Forests in New York, and others. Our event today will have a specific thematic and regional forum, and we'll look at the forest sector vis-a-vis fashion and packaging. The overall theme, though, today of this year's celebration of the International Day of Forests is sustainable consumption and production. And we consider these the actual pillars of sustainable development, but actually also the pillars of doing things differently. They concern all of us, and all this obviously fits extremely well with the circular economy and our efforts of reducing our environmental footprints of our societies. By the way, just to mention it, we have just released today a podcast on this issue, which focuses on One World, Zero Waste, the circular economy with a focus on forests. And I invite you all to listen to this very interesting podcast produced by my section. What we hope to do today is to show you that using forests sustainably will help us to move to an economy with which is based on renewable, reusable, and recyclable materials. Wood, as we know, can be used for many different purposes. They have lower environmental impacts than many alternative materials. Wood used once can be reused, it can be recycled, and thereby extending its life and further reducing its material footprint. But doing things differently needs also science. It needs innovation. It needs constantly improving what we have right now. It needs new products from wood and trees, which includes obviously textiles, it includes food, it includes the construction materials, even cosmetics, biochemicals, bioplastics, and medicines. Replacing less sustainable materials with renewable wood and tree-based products can reduce the carbon footprint. At UNEC, we traditionally celebrate this Day of Forests with the public and our forest sector. As you know, today, this is not really possible, but we very much look forward to next year when we can have you all back here in Geneva at the Palais des Nations. Let me express my huge thank you to our two moderators and to all the speakers who are joining us today and are making this online event possible. I hope that it will be an interaction between us and the experts and the audience, and I wish you a very, very interesting event. And now over to the moderator of our first session, Simone Cipriani, who is the chair of the United Nations Alliance of Sustainable Fashion. Simone, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and hello everybody from a sunny and beautiful Mali. I'm trying to put my video on to be visible. Okay, I think you see me. Hello there, I'm speaking to you from the UN mission in Mali, the offices of the MINUSMA and the UNDP. I am Simone Cipriani, as said by the chair. I am in the moment with the responsibility of the chair of the UN Alliance for Sustainable Fashion, but I'm also the manager of the Ethical Fashion Initiative that does three things in the industry of fashion, that manages a large supply chain from several African countries and also from Central Asia, involving many female artisans who are regular suppliers of some of the biggest fashion brands in the world. We run an accelerator for emerging African fashion brands. And at the same time, we also run an ESG due diligence system that is being developed in this moment with the Association of the Italian Fashion Brands. This ESG due diligence system, in our intentions, should become the point of reference for due diligence on ESG in the industry. Today, we are going to hear a lot about sustainability. Today, particularly, we are going to speak about the importance of passing from a plastic-dominated linear business model to a business model that is circular and bio-based. So we start with a poll around that. In your opinion, participants, you can put your answers in the chat. Which one of the following textiles are based on plastics? Polyester, viscose, elastan, lyocell, and modal. Polyester, viscose, elastan, lyocell, and modal. Which of these ones is based on plastic? And then the second question for our poll. What are the biggest sustainability challenges facing the fashion industry today? Is it freshwater depletion and pollution? Is it deforestation? Is it greenhouse gas emissions? Is it health and safety of the workers? Is it low wages? Is it about textile waste? Up to you to supply your inputs. Let's see what you think. Let's see what you think. Let's see what you think. Okay, do we have technical service at UNOC? Do we have an idea of the results of the poll? Et voilà, et voilà. Exactly, polyester and elastan are based on plastics. The others are not based on plastics. And let's see the other poll. It's interesting to see your opinion. Technical service, can we see the second question, the second poll?
You should be able to see it by scrolling down.
By scrolling down, wow, there it is, there it is. Yeah, I see that. It's interesting because a lot of you, the majority of you, has indicated freshwater depletion and pollution as the biggest problem. And it's indeed a problem, the usage of natural capital, which is excessive for this industry. Just a few of them put deforestation. Of course, a good 50% greenhouse gas emissions and health and safety of workers, which is very important. I'm astonished by this 44% textile waste and low wages, because textile waste is a huge environmental problem and low wages are part of the problem. But maybe we'll have the way to speak about this today. That's an interesting poll. We can start the session by watching a video. In this session, we'll have a lot of interesting conversations. The first one is with the designer, Tiziano Guardini, and with two executives of a huge European fiber producing company, Lenzing, my friend Carlo Covini and Eva McGeorge. So let's watch a video and then we start.
Avere una voce è importante. Io ho una voce, voi avete una voce, ma alcune cose questa voce non ce l'hanno. In questo viaggio circolare, come la mia moda, ho deciso di dare questa voce alla foresta. Quando si ha una missione, degli obiettivi chiari sono il punto di partenza.
I believe SDG 12, responsible consumption and production, is among the most important SDGs for the fashion industry. By 2030, we need to achieve the sustainable management and efficient use of natural resources and reduce waste generation through circularity.
Percorrerò il cerchio passando tra gli alberi, producendo la fibra cellulosica Tencel, tessendo le trame di tessuti compostabili e cucendo degli abiti che possono tornare al pianeta come nuova risorsa. Scappiamo dalla città e torniamo alla nostra vera casa, la natura.
So circular economy is actually the heart of Lenzing's business model. And it has three important aspects to simplify. The first and foremost is all the raw materials we use in Lenzing comes from nature, and they can go back to nature. And the second one is keeping the materials in the loops, that is called a closed loop manufacturing process, whether it's our biorefinery, our lyocell process, where all the process chemicals and water are being used in the process so that you don't have much waste and you actually utilize to the 100%. The third one is there is so much waste in the world. So we are trying to use that waste to make new raw materials like fibers with a virgin quality with our technology called Refibra technology.
And one of our most important innovations is Tensor with Refibra technology, where we also use recycled cotton. So we really take waste from the textile industry and reuse it or upcycle it in order to create a new fiber.
Le foreste sono una risorsa perché fonte di vita. Se invece di sfruttarle, lavoriamo con loro, le proteggiamo e le valorizziamo, avremo raggiunto l'armonia con l'ambiente.
Certificare vuol dire dare certezza, fornire garanzie. E quindi per fornire garanzie è opportuno, è indispensabile avere delle regole. Questo vuol dire convivenza tra uomo e foresta. Noi dobbiamo avere delle regole per cui levare questo materiale dalla natura esige una responsabilità nel quanto tagliare, nel quando tagliare e nel dove tagliare.
Come si trasforma un desiderio in una scelta? Il tessuto è il veicolo per farlo.
Rispetta, ricicla, riduci, riutilizza, ripara. Sono le 5 R del nostro processo produttivo sostenibile. Sono 5 verbi, 5 parole, 5 azioni che ci aiutano a produrre nel modo più sostenibile possibile.
La bellezza della natura, dell'anima, di quello che creiamo è un elemento di connessione.
Una moda oggi, secondo me, una pelle che oltre a portare estetica deve portare etica, portare responsabilità, sapere che quando si indossa un vestito, questo vestito significa qualcosa, ha significato. Cerchiamo di capire insieme come questa emozione può diventare anche ragione di convivenza, trasformazione, cambiamento e quindi una responsabilità condivisa.
Kenyani is famous for sustainable innovation, but we asked ourselves, how would we make a jean if we would have to make one? And so we came up with the concept of the microfactory. This is where we showcase all the steps of production, from the fabric to the cutting, to the stitching, and to the washing, in order to educate the consumer and to engage with the consumer, make him part of the production process, reestablish also a communication and a relation with who makes your garment.
C'è chi ha fatto della sostenibilità la sua gioia, traducendo il valore di una filiera e di chi si sforza a fare meglio. La scelta dei tessuti di Berto e Candiani ci permette di unire un'innovazione di processo alla riconnessione con il pianeta.
So once I woke up and I asked myself, what if these trends I said are also good for the planet and for the people, without compromising on style, of course. I choose sustainability as a mission in my private life and in my career as well. So it's not easy. I'm not 100% sustainable. Every day I see a lot of brands that I like. Some of them are not really sustainable, but I think the good thing is always to do better.
Ogni partner, ogni persona coinvolta nel cerchio è importante. I miei vestiti devono saper essere raccontati per raggiungere gli obiettivi di tutti.
Lo storytelling del brand è molto importante, soprattutto storytelling ancora prima che concettuale e verbale, lo storytelling più immediato e sensoriale, quindi quello che passa attraverso la vista, attraverso il tatto, attraverso l'emozione che il capo è in grado di comunicare al cliente in maniera immediata, quasi viscerale e istintiva. Into the Forest riesce a coniugare l'eccellenza dell'artigianalità italiana con l'avanguardia tecnologica in un'ottica di circolarità.
Foresta, il cui significato deriva dal latino foris, forestiero, venire da fuori. Io sono uscito dalla città per ritrovarla e riportarla nelle nostre vite.
Here we are. Thank you. Thank you. Here we are. Let's get to the hard talk with Tiziano, Carlo, and Eva. Tiziano, I have a first question for you. You are a designer. In this video, you have already explained why you advocate for sustainable fibers. But my question now is, why do you work really with sustainable fibers? What are the advantages? Are there also technical advantages along with sustainability, of course, advantages of working with these kind of fibers? Tiziano, over to you. 3 minutes. Go.
Okay, first of all, I would like to say thank you to everyone, to the friends that are creating this new idea, this reconnection with nature. So thank you to United Nations, thank you to Biffy, thank you to Lansing, and really a lot of people are working on it, so thank you. As a designer, in general terms, fashion designers are conceptually focused on the creation, sometimes far from the work inside and behind the material, and obviously far from the impact of this material on the environment, on people, on animals. My approach is naturally holistic. From the creation to the production, I try to reflect the harmony of nature. I try to respect life with, I can say, with capital letter. I feel that we are deeply connected to everything on our planet, and we cannot ignore this connection in our lives and in the fashion industry too. During my career, I rethought the role of the fashion designer on our society, because considering that we have built cities to get away from nature, from forest, and why? Because we are part of the forest, we are part of nature. I strongly believe that we have to reconsider this relationship with nature. We have to collaborate with nature. We have to learn from nature. And as a designer, I can say we have to design as a nature.
Hello?
Simone, From the technical part.
I lost you for a very short while. You have almost used your 3 minutes. Please, all what you say is very relevant and important, but please get to the point I asked. What are the advantages of using sustainable materials? You are a designer, you use them, we want to know it.
For me, it's important because we have to reconnect with nature. I don't know. In my life, I live my life on the assumption that there is a connection with nature. So we are nature. If we ignore this relationship, we ignore this part of our life. So using natural material, using natural process is something that can help ourselves to reconnect with nature. So this is the way, because in nature there is not a concept, for example, of waste. So why, as human, we introduced this concept? So using natural material, using material in harmony with nature, using process in harmony with nature, we have the opportunity to reconnect ourselves with nature. And this is, for me, the best and the only one advantage for me to be in connection with this planet. And
so it's mainly about reconnecting all the dots around us, recreating a harmony with the planet, and therefore having the feeling, the good feeling of being part of a whole, of a harmonious whole and a sustainable one. So it's first of all an advantage from the point of view of the impact, of course, but also of the well-being, even of the designer, even of you, Tiziano.
Yes, because I don't know why sometimes you think about work and private life in a different way. So in both of this situation, we
That's very clear. You reconnect the two. You reconnect your private life, your life as a citizen, and your life in work if you use sustainable materials and if you do the choice of sustainability. This is very beautiful, Tiziano. Thank you. Reconnecting your whole existence around sustainability. Well, I hope, Tiziano, that many other designers in this industry are like you, because this would produce instantly an incredibly sustainable industry. We are already at 5 minutes and 45 seconds, so I have to pass to Carlo Covini, executive at Lenzing. Lenzing is a giant producing sustainable fibers. It's a giant in producing man-made cellulosic fibers. Carlo, can you give us a brief introduction to what these fibers are and how they are produced? Carlo, 3 minutes. You know, I am a very severe coordinator here. Please stick to the time you are allowed. Go.
Short time. So I show my box to give a better idea at everything. So we start on the wood, we extract the cellulose like paper, and we produce our fiber. With our fiber, you can produce a lot of kind of different textile products. Of course, you have to pay attention at every process because to be sustainable, you have to process the wood and everything in a very environmentally responsible
Can you turn the box towards the bravo like this so that we can also see? Carry on.
I help Carlo. Okay.
Wood, cellulose, like paper, and fiber. And now we produce staple fiber like cotton or wool, and we produce now also a filament like silk. So my tie is from Tencel Lux, our new innovation in textile filament. So and also we can produce a lot of different fabric. So I said that very important the process, and Lenzing is a bioraffinery, so very important. We take the wood and we extract a lot of product from the wood. xylose, a sugar with low calorie for your coffee maybe, or acetic acid also for the food industry. And 40% is cellulose, and we produce our fiber, and with the rest we produce bioenergy for our plants. So I think that Lansing is a very sustainable producer. Okay. With the collection of Tiziano, we have two different fabric from two rivers in Italy, Berto and Candiani. Okay, the fabric from Berto is a mix because you can use our fiber, you can mix with a lot of different fiber. It's a mix with linen, cotton, and tencel lyocell. So a really mix of nature. The product is biodegradable. So so come back in a natural way to the nature, or you can recycle in other way. And we have a second product from Candiani that is the denim. And okay,
do you want to show?
Okay, the denim, and the denim is a very particular denim because it's with recycling cotton and with tencel lyocell with refibra technology. What is refibra technology? Okay, we take the textile waste from cotton textile waste, pre-consumer and the post-consumer. We extract the cellulose from the cotton and we mix the cellulose with our normal wood-based cellulose and we produce new fibers.
So you're using there, your raw material there is both post-industrial and post-consumer waste, both them.
Yes. At the moment,
extremely interesting.
At the moment, only 30% of cotton waste, but we are developing the project and we want to increase to 50% and to at the moment we have to use only 100% cotton.
So this technology of yours of Lansing allows you both processing fibers directly from wood and both reprocessing different forms of waste, post-industrial and post-consumer, thus achieving a complete circularity. Is that so?
Yes, we have a double circularity. One, because our product is biodegradable, so you can revert back to nature without problem.
So the product that you develop from wood and from natural fibers is biodegradable, so it goes back into the cycle of life. And the second one is recycled, fully recycled.
Yes, and the end is also biodegradable, so you can recycle in a second, give a second life with mechanical recycling with other systems.
That's very clear. That's very clear, Carlo.
You can. Okay.
That's very clear, Carlo. Thank you. Okay. Thank you, Carlo. Thank you,
Simone,
Carlo.
we maintain this in the entire process making this garment because we maintain this opportunity to come back to nature as a with new energy from the nature. So all the garments are compostable
all those garments behind you are compostable. All those garments come out of natural processes or they come out directly of recycling. So this is already a very important example of what sustainability from the angle of materials is. And this is why I come to Eva. Eva, I have a difficult question for you. Because the question is, how does Lansing ensure that the fibers, that wood that we saw at the very beginning, comes from sustainably managed forests? I ask this because I read the report here. Climate experts agree that the CO2 from tropical deforestation now accounts for around 10% of global warming pollution. So how does Lansing ensure that this wood is recovered out of a sustainable use of forests? Over to you, 3 minutes.
Super, hi Simone. So first of all, with Lansing, we're very demanding when it comes to how and where we actually source the wood and the pulp for our fibers. We have a lot of guidelines and processes and principles in place that really ensure sustainable sourcing. So we have a centrally located wood and pulp purchasing team that really make sure that all our suppliers conduct and comply with our standards. So we have a conduct of compliance with our suppliers where they have to adhere to certain policies and standards in order to be able to work with us. And on top, those suppliers also need to meet or exceed all the criteria set by leading international forest protection agencies. So in order to make sure they're really all compliant and it's all, sourced from, sustainably managed forests. Yeah? On our side, the certifications of our wood and pulp, they're all in accordance with FSC and PFC standards and also with the Canopy Style initiative. So all in all, we really want to make sure that where we source our wood and pulp from is really, the best locations and really sustainable from sustainably managed forests. Yeah? And we're not only very proud of this, but we're also very transparent about this. So as of today, we're also launching a series and content where, consumers and our brand partners can really look behind the scenes. They really will find out where we're sourcing, how we're sourcing. We have a lot of experts talking about the processes. So we really want to make this very open and very transparent because it's something, we as a company are really, believe in and are very proud of. Yeah.
I thank you, Eva, a very, very quick reply. And you also used only 2 minutes of your 3 of your allowance. You are incredible. Thank you. Incredible you are. And you made a very important point that any work on sustainability in biofiber, to all what you have said so far in this panel, starts from a sustainable use of forests. And this is also something to underline the importance of the work of UNICE. The sustainable management of forests in the world of today is extremely important for the planet, but even as we see, for industrial activities linked to fashion. When I was coming here this morning, the driver, the UN driver, who was taking me here to the headquarters in Mali, was telling me, but are you going to speak about forests today? And I said, yes. This is extremely important, and this panel shows exactly that. Guys, thanks a lot. You are a great panel. You are great people. I hope to see you very soon, particularly Carlo, with whom we have some work to be done. And we pass to the next session, but in between, we check if we have questions for you. So Leonie, over to you there at UNOG. What are the questions? Who's going to answer the questions? Leonie, over to you.
Thanks, Simone. We have no questions so far, so that's a friendly reminder to all participants to feel free to post your questions. They will be picked up during the session. The chat box is there and open for you. Thank you.
I have a question for Carlo and Eva. When did Lenzing start this work on sustainable fibers? In which year?
Can I replay?
Yeah.
Also, Lenzing started in 1970 to start with sustainability because Lenzing is in a fantastic area, in a touristic area, close to the Attersee. And the Attersee was a lake where Gustav Mahler and Gustav Klimt spent their vacation. So
a musician and a painter used to be there together.
Yes. And for the region was most important to have the painter and the tourist and not a big producer of cellulosic fiber. So
they did the choice of sustainability 50 years ago.
Yes.
So this tells a lot, guys. This says that sustainability is a journey. Sustainability is not something, a blueprint that you apply today and you become sustainable in 2 days. Sustainability is a journey. Sustainability is a journey also, as if I understand well, a complex journey. But this is a message to everybody struggling for sustainability in the industry of fashion. Engage today. Do it today, because it's a journey. It takes time. I see also what Tiziano said about his work, and also about what Eva said about the management of forests and the inputs that you have there. It's a journey. To have a forest managed sustainably, Eva, is a journey, isn't it?
Yeah,
It's not a thing that you obtain in a day.
Absolutely, and it's a journey that we and everyone needs to keep innovating every day further and further. So it's a lot based on experience, but we as a company and we all need to in this area need to be innovating every day, yeah, to make it better.
To make it better, guys, I hope to meet you very soon, maybe also there in Bifi, where we used to have a lot of beautiful collaborations from Africa. So my personal regards to the team at Bifi. I hug you all, and we pass to the next panel. Pass to the next panel. Goodbye, guys. Thank you. Thank you. Remain with us. Thank you. Remain with us and remain available if there are questions coming up later. The next panel is another moderated roundtable where we will hear more about opportunities for circularity from the forest to garment. We have some fantastic speakers there. We have Ana Belén Noriega, who is the Secretary General of PEFC Spain. We have Vinicius Nonino and Bibiana Rubini, who are executive managers at Suzano. We have Janne Poranen of Spinnova. We have Jose Antonio Mozorra, the Textile Santanderina, Director of Purchase there. We have Helena Klesson of Sodra, another important player in the area of sustainability. So guys, I give you 1 minute each to introduce yourself, to present what you and the organization you work for do. We start by Ana Belén Noriega. Ana, over to you, 1 minute to introduce yourself.
Good morning. Thank you, Simone. Good morning to everyone. I am Ana Belén Noriega. I'm a forest engineer. I work for PFC Spain. I belong to the biggest forest-based organization, which is PFC. We are born in the heart of the forest, hand by hand with small forest owners and the family forest. And we have a bottom-up approach. We take care of forests and people to jointly improve the social and environmental and economic conditions of forests and people living and in the surrounding areas and which their livelihoods depends on the forest. But also take care of the products coming from such well-managed forests by tracing them through a chain of custody.
That's very clear. Thank you, Anna. And you've been within the time allowed you had. So fantastic. Now, Vinicius Nonino and Bibiana Rubini, tell us who you are, what to do, what Suzano does. Over to you guys.
Hello, I can start here. Good morning from very early in Brazil right now. So I'm Vinicius Nonino. I'm responsible for new business area within Suzano. Just for you guys to know, Suzano is the largest pulp and pulp player in the world today. We are producing, considering pulp and paper, more than 12 million tons of these products. And we are managing more than 2 million hectares of forest, out of which more than 40% they are for conservation purpose. Wow. Back in 2020, in the beginning of the new Suzano, we reinforced our strategic view, the importance of sustainability innovation. We set ambitious goals for 2030. I can talk about this later. And I believe we can explore more about what we are doing in the next questions, okay?
Thank
Viviana?
you, Vinicius. Thank you, Vinicius, and thank you for being with us. I didn't say it, from Brazil. It's really
thank you. That's okay.
And Bibiana, what about you? And first of all, are you also based in Brazil now?
I'm also based in Brazil. Good morning.
Who are you? Sorry.
Good afternoon. It's okay. So thank you for having us. Bibiana Rubini here. I'm the R&D manager for Suzano. I work here in Suzano for the past 15 years. All of them dedicated to sustainability and innovation development. That's a concept that we have here in Suzano, is that we only do innovation that is strictly attached to sustainability. So the materials, the products, the technologies that we work, they are based on technologies that will be more environmental friendly and less impact to the environment. So it's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you, Bibiana. Thank you for being with us from Brazil. And now Janne Poranen, who are you? What do you do? What does Spinnova do?
Yeah, good morning, everybody. Very, very nice to be here. I'm Janne Poranen. I'm a CEO and the founder of Spinnova. So Spinnova is the unique, let's say, the growth company at the moment. We are commercializing the most sustainable fiber, as we believe, and we have a concrete action ongoing actually with Suzano, who is our strategic partner. So we are investing to 50 million first commercial plant here in central Finland, and it should be ready to start at the end of this year. But a little bit later, I will tell you more details about Spinnova. Thank you.
Thank you. That's very kind of you, and thank you for being with us. And now, Jose Antonio Mazorra, Textile Santanderina. Who are you? What is Textile Santanderina?
Yes, good morning. Good morning, and thank you, Mr. Cipriani. It's a pleasure to participate in this table about fabrics and garment for sustainable forest raw material, and this opportunity for circularity. Well, my name is José Antonio Mazorra. I am in charge of in raw material and supply and corporate social responsibility areas from Textile Santanderina. We are a Spanish textile company located in the north of Spain, and where we produce yarn and fabric from garment fashion and protective wear. Also, we are working with in the decarbonization group, working group of the Fashion Industry Charter for climate action from the United States. So at the beginning of the times, forest has been a guarantee of sustainability to humanity. And we have to recover the balance, I think, between the man and his environment, which allow us to benefit and enjoy it without it being at the cost of this destruction. We stand of forest sustainability certification together with the development of circularity project are one of the ways to achieve this objective.
Thank you, Jose. Thank you for being concise and telling us everything about you, the company. And now, Helena, do I pronounce your name well? Claesson. At Stodra. Who are you? What you do? Tell us. We want to hear more about you.
Thank you and good morning, everyone. My name is Helena Claesson, and I work as a senior product manager at Södra Innovation. Södra is a forest company. We have been working with sustainable forest for many decades now. Most of our forests are both FSC and or PEFC certified. So sustainability is a core issue for us, and we have both textile pulp but also paper pulp in our portfolio, as well as timber, and we produce a lot of energy as well. So we are pretty much a biorefinery within our company. So lots of exciting and good products coming out from the forest.
Great, thanks a lot. We are going to hear more from you very soon. We start our panel with the question to Ana Belén Noriega. Ana, you work for a global forest certification scheme. Can you explain to us what you do and how your work is related to fashion? This is connected also to what we were discussing before with Eva. She was mentioning the sustainable certification schemes for forest. What are they? What is it? Over to you, Ana.
Thank you, Simone. Well, we take care of the forest by having our criteria and indicators. So we state that a forest is sustainably managed if it accomplished with the requirements of sustainability, which are set in different international and national processes. We have to remember we are a bottom-up organization, so we state this kind of of requirements, depending on the area, the ecosystem where we are in the world. Then afterwards, with chain of custody, we take care not only of transparency and traceability, but also of the labor conditions of workers in forests, and also all through the chain of custody, both in forest and chain of custody. So we want to have sustainability from forests to the garment, and then recycling. So we can achieve the circularity. So we take care both of raw materials and also of recycled materials. We can also certify recycled. Okay, so for us it's very important, this part of circularity. And our role is to raise awareness of the fashion industry about responsible sourcing. When it comes to forest-based materials, that is where we are. Man-made cellulose fabrics, as we mentioned before, as well as packaging, for instance, or even
as
furniture.
well as packaging. As well as packaging, you're absolutely right. But, so let me ask a very straight question, a very bad one. But so does it mean that there's a way to cut down trees in a sustainable way?
Of course, of course.
How does it work? Are they replaced?
Yeah, of course. We foresters work managing the light of the forest to open space by, among other silvicultural labors, we cut trees. But we cut trees to let the new ones grow up and make the finest conditions in the forest. So we need to make this, depending on the forest, you need the newborns, they will need more or less or less light. So we will manage this light in the forest to let the soils be fresh. Sorry?
Please carry on.
Yeah, to let the soils be fresh soils, and to allow the species, both animal and vegetables, to grow healthy in the forest, and to foster.
So if you want it's a circular management of the forest. When you remove something, you add something, and so you don't deplete the endowments of tree of the planet by doing that.
No, not at all. What we do by managing sustainably is, as I said before, to set the best conditions of that forest. We are technicians. There are scientists behind. It is not a matter of felling trees and taking out the wood. That is not the thing. The thing is to do things to manage forest sustainably and to make the circle of life in a forest, taking into account every single thing, even how this forest can store CO2. We have to also to foster this part of the forest. Also soils, the water, fresh water, more than 70% of water, drinking water comes from forest, of forest catchments. We need to take care also of that. So it's
absolutely.
It's a complex thing.
It's a complex thing. It's a holistic vision. Thank you, Anna. You reassure us. You really reassure us on the fact that we have resorts, forests that can be used sustainably, that can contribute a lot to the planet. But people do not often think these resorts is important also for the industry of fashion. And your presence here.
We also make alliances with different organizations like UNECE that we started with, working Forest for Fashion campaign.
Of course.
Amazing campaign, which is still, we are working with them. And we also have our campaigns like Fashions Change, Forest Stay, which is a campaign where we come with the companies together to make a responsible source of forest-based materials.
So you see people in the audience, in the public, a person, a scientist, a person who works for forests also works for the industry of fashion. That's an important message today. It can be done. I'm passing to Vinicius with a question on his work. Vinicius, there in Brazil, Suzano makes products for everyday life. You make a lot of stuff, furniture, paper, cosmetics, products for in every segment of our life. What are the advantages of creating these products from wood, and which type of materials are you replacing with your products? Over to you, Vinicius.
Yeah, thank you. Well, first of all, just a correction. We are not producing furniture or biofuels at this point.
That are included
for
in
this,
furniture.
that will be included.
Exactly. Thank
you. So I just want to use the last question that was made. In our case, we are in fact managing the forests in a different way. Like we don't even say that we cut trees. In fact, we are harvesting because we are planting. We go into the graded areas.
That's a beautiful definition. Harvesting. That's a beautiful. It gives you the idea of the circularity. It's a beautiful definition.
Absolutely. So as I was mentioning, Suzano has set ambition goals, sustainability goals back in 2020. And one of them was to replace close to 10 million tons of fossil-based products and plastics until 2030. We have a number of things that we are doing right now, as we were mentioning some of the industries that we are touching. I can give you just some examples. We have our lignin area where we have the lignin being used for rubber, antioxidant rubber, thermoplastics, in wood resins, so several applications that we are developing. Also, we have our food contact paper, flexible packaging. I believe Bibiana can talk about this later. We also have under the biofuels area to replace diesel, gasoline, other chemicals, everything coming from wood.
To directly replace also fossil fuels.
Yes, we can replace this through what we call co-processing, like co-processing with the fossil-based products, but also replacing this in petrochemicals in general. So there are a number of initiatives that we are developing right now. Biocomposite, yes, biocomposites by adding a pulp into for the replacement or polyethylene, polypropylene, for example. So a number of things that we do. Everything, at the end of the day, everything that we are doing, we are in fact replacing fossil-based products. What are the advantages that we have for this? The first of all of this, obviously, is emissions. Because by entering in areas where we have degraded soils, we're capturing at the same time capturing carbon in the atmosphere. And second, after this, when we are using and replacing the products in the market, the carbon intensity that we have is much lower. And I just give you an example. We were talking about the biofuels. By comparing what we can do to the regular diesel or regular gasoline, we have less than 20% of the carbon intensity that we would be finding in the fossil-based fuels. So a lot of benefits. We do this in an integrated landscape, so social benefits, environmental benefits, a lot of potential benefits that we can explore this later. Okay?
Absolutely, you have environmental benefits immediately on emissions, on greenhouse gas emissions, on decarbonizing the work of today, but also in reducing plastics, and therefore also indirectly the problem of microplastic pollution and everything. So you have a wide range of impact. Congratulations. I now want to ask a question to your colleague, Bibiana. Bibiana, are bio-based products automatically, we just started speaking about this with Vinicius, less environmentally damaging than non-bio-based materials, in particular as we speak about fashion? Vinicius gave us the overview. Let's go deep into fashion. What does this replacement of materials mean in terms of sustainability for the fashion industry? Over to you, Bibiana.
Thank you. It's very straightforward. When your raw material is forest-based, that's absolutely renewable. So as Vinicius said, we don't cut, we harvest trees, they grow all over again. We've been doing that. Suzano is almost a 100-year-old company. So we've been using the same land ever since then. So we've been growing trees in the same land. Of course, increasing our forest base because we increase the volume that we produce, but using the same land to build new forests means that we are using less resources of water, you know, natural resources to grow the same amount of trees.
Yes.
To generate, yes, everything basically to generate raw material. So immediately when you go for renewable forest-based products, you do have environmental advantages of using this type of material. When you go to the mill, the production
when you go to
of the
fashion, when you go to the mill, exactly, what happens there?
Then what you do have from forest-based materials is that you have materials that are recyclable, are renewable, and depending the way that you use it, for instance, the partnership that we have with Spinnova, I'm sure that Yanni will go deeper in that, but we use less water, we don't have residues, and we can recycle that fiber. The production, the raw material we produce to Spinnova is nanocelluloses, so it's a very technological material. And at Suzano, we produce that 100% free of chemicals. So it's just the fiber mechanically treated to provide the properties to perform as a staple fiber to work out just like cotton. So there's
like
plenty
cotton,
of advantages of going down the road of using forest-based materials, not only in fashion, but in several other value chains that, as you can imagine.
So what you say is that these materials are now mainstream raw materials for the industry. The industry is much more than cotton, wool, and silk, because there's a whole palette, a whole gamut, a whole thing of materials that you can use. And these new materials are now not only new, they are sustainable, but they are already something that is stabilized, that is a reality, which is available. So this is a message also for the fashion industry in general. You can use these materials. They are available, yes. They are there, and their impact is proven. If you do not do it, you have to be accountable to consumers and to the planet, because I mean, it's something that is extremely important. And speaking about the industry and speaking about how these things are used, thank you, Vinicius, thank you, Bibiana. I pass to Janne. Janne, you have addressed sustainability issues in the production of man-made cellulosic fibers. Tell us two things. What are the advantages of these innovations again? But particularly, tell us about your partnership with Adidas. You have a partnership with Adidas to use these materials. What it is about, what is it about, what are the challenges, what are the possible results? Over to you, Janne, we want to know about that.
Okay, thank you. So maybe first to start that what Spinnova is doing. So it is important it is important to understand that we are producing the textile fiber without any dissolving chemicals.
So like, your textile fiber has no chemicals whatsoever?
Not any dissolving chemicals.
Not any dissolving one. So you don't leave any chemicals in water effluents. This is what you say?
No. So what we do is that when we take, for example, paper pulp into the process, then actually Suzano is grinding that mechanically down into the small microfibers.
Yes.
And those microfibers or microfibrils, they are actually the same as what you can find in the nature. And then our innovation is that we are blending those microfibers into the water. And then our innovation is that how you are able to spin textile filament out of those microfibrils with water. And that is unique because no one else is not able to do it. But what are the benefits are, for example, that the water use is about 99% less compared to the cotton. CO2 emissions are at least 65% less. We are not creating any waste because
you do not have chemicals and you do not have the chemicals in the effluents.
No, the only side stream what is coming out of the process is the evaporated water. It is only coming when we are evaporating and drying the wet filament. and then we are putting that back to the process. And what is also extremely important is that our fiber, Spinnova fiber, can be upcycled again and again. And we are
so
not
you can repurpose, you reuse it and reuse it and reuse it. It's really a sustainable material because it has a sustainable process and it can be continuously reused.
Yes, exactly. And unlike actually one brand owner was saying that this is like a holy grail for the textile industry, because first
it seems so indeed, what you
Yeah,
say.
Because first you have a sustainable raw material, then you have really the green sustainable production process, and then you can close the whole loop that you can upcycle the fiber. And of course, this is something what the textile industry is waiting for and looking at the moment.
Absolutely, it's a big piece of innovation. Congratulations. But tell us about the use of this with Adidas, because this is already putting into practice this new technology.
Yes, that's true. So what we have decided that our strategy is that we are willing to work in a close strategic partnership with the brand owners, but also in the raw material side, like with Susan. So because then you can combine the best knowledge, best competence globally, and then it is the best way that you can go into the big volumes as soon as possible. And also with Adidas, what is important that we share the same values and the vision about the future of the textile industry. So for example, the Adidas has a strategy that they are looking like 3 different key areas. So this kind of solutions, what we do, that it is made out of the nature, then that it is made to be remade, and then that you are able to close the loop. And now, of course, this is something what we can offer to Adidas. And this first hoodie, what we were launching like a couple of weeks ago, it is like a first example. And now Adidas is saying that they have a goal that 9 out of the 10 products in 2025 are going to be this kind of like a sustainable product. So where they are using.
Adidas just launched a hoodie on the market, which is made out of those products.
Yes, exactly.
So does it mean that Adidas will also help to communicate to consumers the importance of this innovation? Do they also engage in communication around that?
Of course, and this is like an extremely important topic. So that is part of the reason that why we have selected that we are working closely with the brand owners. Because of course the brand owners, they know how the consumers are behaving. They know that what are the needs at the moment. And I can say, as we all know, that the people are waiting more sustainable material solutions for the future. And now when we are working with, for example, with Adidas, of course, it is the way to do the most, let's say, the best impact also in the consumer level. And also that when we are working with like a great partner like Susanna, that you can go basically any volumes in globally. And that is what we have shared as a plan, that we are planning to go up to 1 million tons in production volumes in next 10 years. And then when we are doing that, of course, it made a huge impact to the whole textile industry.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. Listen, Janne, it's super interesting, and it shows that this innovation is not only already a reality, but innovation is a network. You speak about your collaborations with Susano, with Adidas. Innovation cannot generate from isolation. Innovation needs connectivity, networking. This is the good side of globalization, the fact that there are global networks of collaborations. We speak here from Spain to Brazil to Sweden and you all collaborate together and you are creating something unique, something incredible. Thank you. I'm passing to our friend Jose. Jose from Textile Santanderina. I have a couple of questions for you, Jose. First of all, Textile Santanderina is the first producer of cellulose fabrics worldwide to obtain chain of custody certification. Anna was speaking about chain of custody. What exactly does it mean? Why is this chain of custody certification so important? Can you explain this to our public? Jose, over to you.
Thank you. Well, I think that this Textile Santanderina decision was a logical decision one, and a logical step without our own evolution. We are working from the 30 years ago on this sustainability fiber like tencel, like we have spoken before, and so we are going to create it and grow in the fashion and protective wear market with this fiber. On the other hand, Textile Santanderina believes that it is needed to get associations between international organizations that allow us to join this effort. We are one of the first Spanish companies and textile also to adhere to a global compact 18 years ago. The 10 principles have served to us as a guide in our growth and sustainability and respect for the environment and defense of human rights. Within this evolution, traceability and transparency became increasingly necessary in our work, and for this reason, we have been certified in the most international recognized organization. And therefore, in this year, we have opted to promote business alliance association with various fields of action, and the chain of custody certification was a logical step to integrate one of our main product lines, yarn fabrics development for sustainability cellulosic raw materials, into the policy. During these 4 years that we have been chain of custody certification, we have collaborated closely with them in fomenting the values of sustainability and care of ecosystem. Some of them with the activity of the United Nations that Forest for Fashion campaign, like Mrs. Anna said before. Only highlighting of commitment of the participating companies and giving visibility on their action can call over organization to action. And there is a lot of of consumer awareness in the new form of consumption. It's important because our approach of this organization allows us to receive the feedback regarding to the quality of our action, as well as to involve in a coordinated manner in transformative tasks. In my opinion, although child of custody certification already take into account social, labor, and human rights factors, like said Ana Belén before. But I think that we should take a step towards certifying that all through the change, the process and chemical products uses are sustainability and respectful with the environment also. Well, Mr. Cipriani, let me to do a short mention of the motto of this International Year of Forest, seeking compatibility between consumption and sustainability of the ecosystem. The transformation must be based on circular economy models, which facilitate the decoupling of the economic growth with the consumption of resources and therefore act of the reduction of waste generation. Because during the last decades, we have witnessed an insipid growth of the demand of resources due to a rapid industrialization of the economies and a high or continued use of resources in developed countries.
That's very clear, Jose. That's very clear. So your point is that this chain of custody certification is an extremely important starting point for the sustainability of the use of forest and for the sustainability of the industry. Let me fire a question to you to get to the same ground of the other speakers. Where do you see the biggest, it's a question between friends. Where do you see in this industry, from your point of view, the biggest potential to decarbonize the industry? Where do you see the biggest potential of decarbonization? Your opinion, personal opinion. You are not speaking for the company.
Okay,
you are here as an expert. We want to hear your opinion.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm sure that Mrs. Lindita will explain
But
better.
of course,
after
she's
all
climate
those.
change. She's climate change. But your
we-
idea, your idea.
We work with her in the group one, like I said before. Okay, I think that there are a lot of opportunity on this. In one is so that we really believe in quality and equality and respect for the environment. Okay, we can't forget that the poorest country are ones of that more are suffering, and this suffering is greater by the effects of the climate change in these kind of countries. So this is the first point.
That's all. We all agree on this, the impact of climate change on the poorest countries. But I ask you another question. I'm sorry, Jose, I am the moderator. I have to get back to the debate. And the question is, in your opinion, what an important, do you see the biggest potential to decarbonize in this industry? In which process? Your opinion, just fire your opinion on that.
Well, I think that all our production process must be involved in innovation and technology development. And this is the most important potential for this.
That's a very good point, Jose. That's a very good point. You say that it's a global approach, a holistic approach. It's a process approach. There isn't a single step of the process that is more important than the others. But as you said today, all these processes together, starting from the sustainable management of forests, must be taken into consideration to decarbonize. So again, what Jose said, your contribution today is that, again, the importance of networking, the importance of networks of innovation, the importance of having a holistic vision and approach to the management of the processes from the beginning, from the raw material to the end. Jose Antonio Mazorra, thank you. Thank you for being with us. I'm going now to Helena. I'm passing from Spain to Sweden to ask to Helena a very straightforward question. Helena, SODRA is an association of 53,000 members, all of whom own a forest estate in southern Sweden. How come you are involved in textile recycling? You are the Association of Owners of Forests. What do you do in textile recycling? Helena, over to you.
Well, that's a very good question. And it took some time for us to really think about this before we jumped into this challenge. Since you mentioned we are a forest association, our core business is to handle our forest owners' wood in the best possible way to create the best value. So it took some time for us, but since we have produced paper pulp for decades, and this paper pulp is recycled, it comes rather natural that we also want our dissolving pulp, our textile pulp, to also be able to be recycled. So that's why we took the challenge of actually digging into this and to try to find a solution.
Sort of natural evolution.
Yeah.
From your core business. It's a sort of natural, by the way, it's what you say is that it's a natural, really, evolution. It's a logical step that you undertook. And so as you have undertaken this logical step, let me ask you another thing. What are the advantages and the challenges of recycling textiles? Is innovation important in recycling textiles?
If we start with advantages, I would say that the biggest advantages is that there is a huge amount of feedstock out there. We know that we put at least 100 million tons of textiles on the market each year, and less than 1% is recycled. So the feedstock is enormous out there. But there is also a big challenge, and this is that it's easy to recycle if it's pure materials. If it's pure cotton, if it's pure polyester, then it's rather easy to recycle. The challenge is actually when it comes to blended materials, and there is a lot of blended materials out there. If you look into your clothes and the notes, what it says it contains, you can often see that it's at least 2 or even more, 3, 4 different kind of fibers. And this is when it's become critical and rather tricky.
And where innovation is important, maybe.
For sure. And we have come up with this innovation once more, where we can separate polyester and cotton. This polycotton is the most common fiber blend in the world today.
It is indeed, yeah. It is indeed, yeah.
So here we have a solution, but there needs to be many different kind of innovations to be handled to handle all of these kind of different blends. And we also see today that there is a gap in the value chain to make it circular. And this is actually to collect the textiles and to be able to sort it into this kind of different fiber compositions. And this needs to be scaled up to be able to have to speed up this process, actually. And,
Forrest, please
sorry?
carry on.
So for us, I mean, we heard about this design earlier today, and this is a huge important to think about already the design phase, how to design the clothes, what kind of fibers you really need for these textiles. The less fibers, of course, we are happy, but the function is, of course, the biggest, the important issue. The garment needs to have a certain function, then you have to look at the fibers, but I do believe there are things that could be optimized a bit better. And also when it comes to dyeing and dyeing techniques, today you can't predict on a garment how it's been dyed, and we need to remove this color. So to be able to optimize
that's
this.
another very good point, Helena. The dyeing that are used today, the use of GOTS certified dyes is very important, because this is the only way to avoid heavy metals and to avoid chemicals, to avoid elements that are difficult, that makes recycling impossible, So really, thank you, Helena, that's a very important point. Also the point on the dyes, but this would take us to a complete new world of a new area of discussion. But it shows again, Helena, what you say shows again that forests and fashion are closely related.
Definitely.
It shows that the journey to sustainability is a journey that we can do all together through collaborations and mutual exchange of experiences, and that there are many other, once you start this journey, you touch many other points. You just mentioned the dyes, which is a key point on the industry of today. So Helena, thank you, and thanks to all the panelists of this specific panel. You prove again that sustainability, the journey of sustainability, is something that is feasible, but is something that requires the engagement of stakeholders, and you are some of the stakeholders who engaged for a better world, along with UNESE and with all your partners. Thank you for what you do, and thank you for this beautiful panel in which I learned something which I will use also in my capacity of chair of the UN Alliance for Sustainable Fashion. You contributed to the planet, you contributed to the work of the UN. Thank you, thank you, thank you. We pass to the next moderated panel. I'm checking the time now because Leonie is very severe with me, and she says you have to stick to the timing. We don't have much, but we may have time for some questions. Are there questions for the speakers? Do we have questions? Leonie, over to you.
Thank you, Simone. There's a question actually from my colleague Florian about the cost. So how much more do consumers need to spend for product in the shop if it is made from, say, cellulose-based fibers, what we heard about, or compared to fast fashion polyester? Is there a big distinction, or is this something that the consumers need to be aware of?
Telling you, and let me add a point to it, and we give it to the speakers. Is sustainability a new form of luxury or not? Is it much more expensive or not? Over to you guys. Who wants to answer? It's a difficult question, eh? Janne, do you want to say something? Go ahead.
Yes, very, very important question. And at least
and
for
then
us,
we have Vinicius, and then we have Elena. Okay, go, Janne.
Yeah, at least our goal is that we can hit also the price level, what is required, because of course it is like clear that in the big volumes you have to be in the reasonable price level. And at the moment what we are working with Suzano, we have estimated that we can be in the same level with cotton in the long term. So no.
That's extremely interesting. That's extremely interesting. Vinicius, your take on it. Is Vinicius with us? I see his image is frozen. You're there. Okay.
Yeah, I'm here. I'm here.
Go ahead.
I'm here.
Vinicius.
I think the key aspect for us, for us to get there is the scalability. Obviously, process development will be important. We will need to make a number of initiatives to get there. But once we get there, we will not be able to reach the cost level that we want. And that's our partnership is about this, because we are coming from material that we already have available. And once we have the process developed, we can get to the cost level to be competitive compared to cotton or viscose. So we are very confident about this.
Thank you, Vinicius. Helena, you wanted to add something?
Yes, I would like, as I mentioned before, there's a gap in the value chain when it comes to recycling of textiles with the sorting and the collecting. And this for sure is a cost. And you should sort manually first, due to that you should sort for secondhand so that it can be resold. I mean, that's the most sustainable way. So this is something that needs to be solved, but I do believe it will have a cost as well.
Thank you, Helena. And I add the final point. We all know, we who work in the fashion industry, that sustainability is also about buying better, and is also knowing that a t-shirt that costs $3 cannot be sustainable. And so our benchmark for sustainability cannot be simply the cheapest part of the market, but it has to be the part of the market in which there are some basic efforts for quality and for sustainability. And in that part of the market, Vinicius, Helena, and all our speakers and Janne have reassured us that we can compete, and that a sustainable material can compete and can be a sustainable and price competitive alternative. Guys, thank you very much. You are great people. You're a bunch of great people, I'm telling you. Thank you. Thank you for being with us. Remain there in case there are more questions and things. And we pass to the next moderated session. We are perfectly on time. There was the idea of another poll, but I do not do it because I want to leave more time to the speakers, and I want to be sure we respect the time frame of this meeting of today. We have two speakers here. We have two formidable speakers now. We have Lindita Xaferri-Saliu, who is the officer in charge of the Fashion Industry Charter for Climate Change at UNFCCC. UNFCCC is the organization of the UN mandated to work on the Paris Agreement on the global efforts to tackle climate change. It's an extremely important stakeholder, Lindita, of the discussion of today. And then we have another person who's going to touch another very important side of our narrative today, and it's our friend Katia Vladimirova, who works at the University of Geneva to study consumer behavior and ethical shopping. But I am asking Lindita first and then Katia to briefly introduce themselves. Lindita, go for it.
Thank you, Simona. Thanks so much for having me here. And hello, everyone. So my name is Lindita. As Simona mentioned, I serve at the UN Climate Change Secretariat. We're based in Bonn, and we're the guardian of the Paris Agreement. We work with parties to the Convention and the Paris Agreement, but also we have a stream of work that looks at working with specific industries to align them with the goals of the Paris Agreement. And fashion is one industry for which we are very much engaged and working directly with.
That's very clear, Lindita. Thank you. Katia, about you.
Sorry, it's can you hear me? I'm at the United Nations headquarters, so it's a bit strange for me. I'm with two screens. Hi. Exciting. Yes. So I'm Katia Vladimirova. I'm a senior researcher at the University of Geneva. My key specialization is right now focused on sustainable fashion consumption. So I'm looking into how modalities of consuming fashion are changing in the recent years in line with the sustainability transition. And I'm looking at it from the perspective of sociological, anthropological debates, and also political science.
That's very clear. Thank you. So I get back to Lindita. Lindita, I've got a question for you. You are the custodian of the Fashion Industry Charter for Climate Action. Please tell us what it is, how it works. Tell us more about that, because I think personally, this is one of the most important documents for fashion sustainability. So everybody working in this industry should know very well what the charter is. Lindita, over to you.
Thank you, Simona. So Fashion Charter is really a multi-stakeholder initiative. It is convened by UN Climate Change, but led by industry stakeholders. So we bring them together to work and identify action roadmaps for industry decarbonization by 2050. Companies that join the charter, they commit to a pathway that is aligned with limiting global temperature rise to 1.5 degrees. So this means either setting science-based targets or adopting an absolute reduction of 50% by 2030 and achieving net zero by 2040. Then in terms of other requirements, there are things like working to create plans on how to get there and submit those plans, following up with plans through concrete actions today as soon as possible, and also being transparent throughout the process in terms of what they're doing and how they're doing it. So there's then in the charter a number of commitments that point to the areas where there's biggest opportunities, but at the same time, biggest challenges for industry decarbonization or transition at the right pace and scale. So because we're talking about raw materials here, maybe to say that we have a number of working groups that look at different elements of the supply chain. And one of them is focusing on raw materials, because there is a commitment in the charter that asks signatories to source 100% of materials that are of low carbon impact by 2030, ensuring that they don't negatively affect other sustainability or sustainable development goals, and basically pursuing materials that are closed loop, recycled, deforestation free, and conversion free in their origins, materials that apply regenerative practices, and also making sure that there is relevant verification and impact measurement mechanisms throughout that process.
Listen, Lindita, then please be sure you make available your website, the link to your website to all participants. I think it's an incredible resource and everybody in this industry should be aware of this. If you work in this industry and you are not aware of this resource, you're not doing your job well. So get to that bloody website now. Make the link available. And then another question for you. You have also some working group on raw materials, don't you? You were mentioning this. Yes. Can you expand that? Can you expand around that? Can you tell us more about this? What is coming out of this working group?
Well, I mean, there's, I guess the audience here knows very well, and there's a growing number of studies that look at, what is the overall emissions of the fashion industry. And as we know, they're valued to be somewhere between 2 to 8% with a most recent percent putting it somewhere between 2% of global emissions. But most of the impact is taking place in the raw material, in the kind of supply chain, and there is where the raw materials and processing and extracting also belongs. So there's a substantial environmental impact related to raw materials. We're talking about cultivation, extraction of raw materials from earth, plants, animals, and so on. So these are some of the things that we're looking at in the working groups, right? To try and understand what can be some pathways to reduction for GHG emissions in the raw materials stage. What is it that the industry needs to do to align on those tools and standards and definitions? The raw material working group has looked at, the impact and done a gap analysis of, let's say, emissions related to cotton and polyester. There's been some work that's been done in terms of man-made celluloses. There's also things like looking at animal fibers right now. So these things will continue. The conversations in the raw materials working group will continue to come up with approaches and practices that work, but at the same time that maintain that level of ambition that we need to have in this process. And of course, we do have other raw materials, other working groups there that look beyond raw materials, like manufacturing, policy engagement and advocacy, financial tools that need to be employed in this process, as well as things to measure, track, and report all the processes, including data management systems.
Super interesting, and you are really touching all the points and connecting all the dots. It's true what you say, the majority of emissions, almost 70% of greenhouse gas emissions come in this industry from the supply chain, and the lion's share of that is the raw materials. So I'm not surprised you have a specific working group on that, and it would be extremely important to have regular information on the discussions in this working group, because this is really at the core of the sustainability issue for this industry. And it's the general conversation of today, Lindita, that underlines how important this work is. So guys, again, UNFCCC, the Fashion Charter, the working group on raw materials. Lindita, I hope that after this conversation, more and more people will call you, will write to you to know more about your work.
Thank you, Simona. Thanks all very much.
I am one of them, you know it.
Yes.
So we go to Katia. Katia, you there at headquarters with the big people of Geneva, and you are sitting just beside our general coordinator, Leonie. Leonie, thank you. You organized this meeting today in an incredibly good way. Thank you. Katia, we want to know more about your work, because you work at the intersection of a very complex issue, and which is the sociological dimension of all this, and particularly what consumers think, how consumers react about this. So tell us about this. Let's have a first question around consumption habits, how they are changing, how they are including sustainability in them. Tell us more about this.
Yeah, that's a great question. It's definitely really relevant for the discussion. We've just heard a fascinating overview of the possibilities from the perspective of production and also bit design, and some on recycling, which is, I think, critical steps that need to be taken by the fashion industry at the phase before the consumer gets the garment, but also, extending it beyond the end of lifespan of the garment. But I was thinking of picking up on something that previously panelists have discussed, and the statement that I think you formulated, that sustainability is a new form of luxury. And I wanted to pick on that and start, unraveling this idea a little bit, in the sense that very often consumers have this idea that sustainable fashion is expensive. And multiple studies show us that consumers who have, for example, middle class purses, they wouldn't be able to, you know, they think they're not able to afford more expensive, more sustainable fashion. And we're really risking here in terms of social and inequality dimensions, we're risking to make it too exclusive for most people to think that they can consume sustainably. However, we know now that buying new fashion is not the only option available to consume sustainably. One of the primary, you know, steps that consumers can do to decrease carbon footprint of their wardrobes is actually to reuse their garments as many times as possible, but also
and all these kind of activities,
secondhand. Yes, yes. So not only we can buy new responsibly made garments to be sustainable, but we can also reuse and buy secondhand garments, which are much cheaper. And if we look at intergenerational sort of dynamics here, we can see that these options of buying vintage, secondhand, swapping or renting garments are really popular among the millennials and Generation Z women primarily. So this is also the main target audience of the fast fashion giants and ultra fast fashion that exists now. So we're seeing there's a little bit of a contradictory trend happening at the same time. On the one hand, this group of consumers, women, millennial and Gen Z women, are really concerned about the environment and they want to make sustainable choices. They want to support, you know, more sustainably made products. But at the same time, they are the ones shopping for fast fashion. So this paradox is really difficult to explain. And to me, the only explanation here would be that people are just addicted to low prices. And that's why the question about price, how, you know, newly made, ethically made, sustainable garments, how are they priced, which price range they fit in is really pertinent to me. So finding that sweet spot where consumers would feel that they're still able to afford.
That's interesting. That's interesting. Consumer choices. There is a segmentation, an age segmentation, though, that shows different potential for consumers. And you say that the youngest generations are more likely to make a sustainable choice in terms of their fashion purchases than the other generations. You mentioned the fast fashion. I wanted to add also high street, which is the higher level than fast fashion, more expensive, but high street is devoting itself to a lot of vintage shopping. If you go to, just to give an example, Lafayette, Galerie Lafayette in Paris, there's the last in the flagship store, the last floor, one of the last floors is wholly devoted to vintage. And it's a very expensive vintage. So this is sustainability in that case conjugated with luxury. But you touched also some important social considerations that there are inequality in this world in which we live, income also inequality. So sustainability, if not properly managed and not properly managed at the level of the industry in terms of offering affordable products, sustainability could also become something only for the richest parts of this global society of our world, cutting out those with less purchasing power. Do you want to elaborate more on the social implications of circularity and sustainability from your point of view?
Yes, this is a very difficult question. It's a wicked question to answer, I would say, in a sense that we are talking about social implications in producing countries, in countries that are primarily consuming fashion, which are not always the same countries, and also in countries that receive textile waste. If we're talking about European context, producing countries.
Exactly, I wanted to come exactly to that.
Yeah.
Textile waste goes.
Yes. So if we're speaking about European consumption, most stuff and the negative effects of production are outsourced to East Asia in terms of production. then we consume and wear them very briefly, these garments that have been made for us, and then we don't want them anymore and they are donated. And please don't be fooled by this term donation. Actually, the supply chains of secondhand garments that secondhand garments go through are as opaque as recently, the supply chains of the production of fashion used to be. Now they're a bit more transparent. But most of the garments from Europe ends up in Africa, different African countries, Tunisia, Ghana, Kenya, and Tanzania, people in these countries cannot recycle these garments in the sense, but like using chemical recycling, for example, because they need capacities, they need infrastructure to do this. So what happens there, unfortunately, most of these garments end up after some reuse in open landfills, because we have to be real, textile needs to end up somewhere at some point. Any garment, no matter how many times you wear it, 100 times, 500 times, it has to go somewhere else. So I really loved, I think it was the Spinova, or I may be wrong, but one of the speakers really covered this idea of putting in, oh no, the first speaker, Carlos, was saying that they're taking in the textile waste and putting it back into the flow, and they're able to make new garments out of what used to be old garments. This is a unfortunate small percentage right now of recycling, and consumers are not aware of this. So many consumers think that they're doing a good thing putting stuff in those donation boxes or some smaller.
Absolutely, it's a very important point, the one of the textile waste and the garments, the second-hand one. In Eastern Africa, where the Ethical Fashion Initiative was born, it's called with the Swahili word mitumba, and the mitumba is also at the origin of the destruction originally of the local garment industry, because these second-hand and cheap imports completely displaced in the market locally produced goods. So a problem in a problem with huge social implications. This shows two things, though. One is that the importance of these technologies we mentioned today in terms of recycling the textile waste, the post-consumer waste, because here we are talking about post-consumer waste, the importance of this technology and the importance of having this technology available also in the places where the post-consumer waste is. And second, that's Katja, a very important point that you mentioned today. This technology must also be available there. All those countries that you mentioned are where the problem is. The second point is to create in these places industrial processing of this post-consumer waste for also repurpose it and recycle it in other products. We are at the Ethical Fashion Initiative, we are setting up our circular factory in Kenya that will make use of post-consumer waste to create new products that will be sold in the region, but also in Europe. So sustainability also from the point of sustainability has many different ramifications. And Katja, thank you. You pointed this out very, very clearly with this problem of post-consumer waste and also with the problem of shopping behavior of the different generations. And this apparent contradiction, which is there, the need of price and the need of sustainability at the same time. This poses a big challenge. Katja, where can we see on the internet about your work and the work of your department?
Well, actually, the department, I am one-man show, more or less working on fashion. But I did create I founded an international research network on sustainable fashion consumption, which started with 5 interested colleagues, and now we have over 100 members from all over the world, but I must confess mostly global north countries that have funding for this kind of research. And if you're interested in more insights on consumption side, yeah, I could send the link in the chat to our
make it available, because I think everybody needs to know more about this. These are things that are important if you want to be sustainable. And I hope this network will be soon enriched by also people in the so-called global south, where they have a lot of knowledge about post-industrial waste and production and post-consumer waste production and so on. So guys, thank you. Before approaching to the end, I would like to know if there are questions from the audience, for our speakers, for Lindita and for Katia. Leonie, our great coordinator, over to you.
Thank you a lot, Simone, for also excellent moderation and really being on time. I don't have to get mad with you. Extraordinary. We don't have any questions in the chat box, but perhaps it would be interesting, actually, since we were talking about waste, textile waste and recycling, to hear from Katia and Lindita whether you have any ideas on how to realistically get the consumer to, take action in this, in terms of returning their garment properly at the end of life, like correcting, properly, and also knowing what to do with their garment waste, like with the clothes that they don't want to use anymore. Is it, more education, or do we need like tags in our clothes to tell us exactly what we need to do and what's inside? What is missing in this space? Maybe you have ideas. That's just from my end.
This is the question.
Thank you, Leonie. Well, I mean, it's interesting though, because one thing that is not being addressed systematically, of course, is the impact in the use phase, right? So we don't know what that impact is. Nobody's measuring it. It's very hard to know how to what would be most effective to actually educate consumers, because I think that is what is missing. Like in taking climate action and in being holistic, of course, you need to know a lot about this rapidly changing world. And I think for myself, I've learned a lot since I work with the fashion industry, and certainly there's lots that people don't know. I mean, I know when I have conversations with my friends over dinner, there's a lot of things that they learned then because they didn't know. And I think it's a lot to do with education and with building capacity. And here, everybody has a role to play. Of course, our organizations, but as well as NGOs and universities as well. And, educational system in general needs to be kind of geared more towards sustainable life and sustainable lifestyle as well. So I think one role that we're looking at in the context of the charter is as well for companies to start aligning their communications with that 1.5-degree pathway, to really let consumers know what their choices are doing to the environment in a way that they take better care of garments, but also that once they learn more about that, they would be in the position to then maybe take an informed decision about their purchasing habits as well.
Crystal clear, Lindita. Thank you. Katia, over to you.
That's a great question, Leonie, and I think that we working on this from a sociological perspective, I try not to put all the responsibility and all the choices and like the burdens of choices on consumers here, because a working mom of 2 kids, she's busy, she's not gonna spend time on searching for the right option, too much time, let's say. So making ethically, sustainably produced garments a default option, sort of a choice editing in some way, is one thing to do. And the other thing, among these choice options, I think what producers could do is offer take-back schemes. This way to show consumers that they're taking responsibility for the garments that they produce, and that their responsibility doesn't end with selling them to consumers, and then it falls onto consumers' shoulders to think what to do with this synthetic, sweater or, another polyester skirt that she doesn't want to wear or the child has grown out of. So I think from the very kind of zooming in to what specific brands and what specific consumers could benefit from are developing take-back schemes, which would indicate that producers are taking this responsibility seriously. And this way they would also produce in a way that it will be easy to recycle. If you can't recycle mixed materials, you're not going to produce garments out of mixed materials, because it's up to you as a producer later to recycle them.
The point of Katia takes us back to design. If you design for sustainability, a product can be sustainable, a product can be recycled or can incorporate sustainable materials. Design is a key input in here. Coming from a production background at the Ethical Fashion Initiative, we run a supply chain. We know that this is a real challenge. But I want to conclude with a point. There are many tools today to make what Lindita and Katia said available to consumers. there are QR codes that can incorporate all the relevant information, but there are also chips that can simply be included in the fabric, in the garments. And then when you pass your phone close to the garment, you see the whole story of it. You see the instructions to recycle. You see the origin of materials. You see the contribution towards climate change, fighting climate change, and so on. All this, we use some of these chips in our very simple supply chains in Africa. For instance, you apply them on the fabric by ironing them on the fabric, and it maintains all the information. It's cheap, it's straightforward, the tools are there. Up to the industry to use these tools and to allow consumers to be really informed beyond greenwashing on what is the real story behind the product. Guys, thank you very much. We are at the end of this meeting and perfectly on time. Shall I draw the conclusions, Leonie? Do you allow me to do it?
Yes, please. Go ahead. Thank you.
I took some notes while you spoke, and we all understand here, we reaffirm once more that climate change is the single greater concern confronting the humankind. It's our biggest challenge. I don't say this only because Lindita is there and she's very severe, but also because this is the reality of the world in which we live. We know today, we saw that human health and well-being is strictly dependent on the health of nature, of ecosystems of the planet. We saw the importance of the forests for the world of today, and also of the sustainable use of forests for this industry of fashion. And on this, again, a warm thank you to UNICE for your work around forests. This is very relevant. What you do is very relevant for this industry. All the participants of today highlighted their engagement in a network, in a global network of innovation. This network exists. It's composed by sub-networks. It would be great that after this discussion today, you all connected together and you all remained in touch to exchange about your experiences, to exchange about what you do. And as a chair of the UN Alliance for Sustainable Fashion, it will be my pleasure to support UNICE in the task of keeping you all together in this fruitful exchange of experience and innovation. I want to close with a consideration. We always say that the problem of this industry is the business model. The non-sustainability comes from a business model that is based on a linear use of resources, a business model that needs more circularity, that needs a different approach to how value is generated. Again, this is in very general terms, a business model based on shareholders' value, on generating shareholders' value. Profits, 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 profits. This business model must now also generate value for the planet and for the whole community of the humankind. So we are asking this business model to pass from shareholder value to stakeholder value. This is what we discussed today in general economic terms, is the transition from shareholder capitalism to stakeholder capitalism, where impact of our actions is an important form of creating good value or a negative value. This is why, and I will close with this, you may have seen that corporate sustainability reporting is becoming as important as financial reporting. You know that companies, all companies and corporations are bound to produce financial reports every year. Now, in more and more legislations, this is true also for corporate sustainability reporting. Companies are bound to produce a corporate sustainability report. And this is a fundamental tool to understand how the company creates value for all stakeholders, for society as a whole, and for the planet. This is why rating agencies such as Moody's and Standards & Poor's and so on have acquired capacities to evaluate ESG reporting, which is to say, to evaluate this form of corporate sustainability report in the same way they evaluate financial reporting. We hope to see more of this in the future. Today demonstrates that this is possible, that the technologies are there, that the engagement of this is there. Thank you very, very much for your engagement, for what you do, for a different industry, for a new form of stakeholder capitalism, and for the planet, for the generations of tomorrow. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Leonie, for having coordinated us. Thank you, Eunice. That was a formidable morning. Thank you.
Let me take the opportunity also, Simone, to thank you very much for your extremely well done moderation, for guiding us through today. It was super interesting. I also wanted to thank all the interpreters for these past 2 hours of their hard work for translating in all these languages. And lastly, also to the team at the UNEC Forestry and Timber section for your support, and for Paula Zeda, our director, for connecting us to many of today's speakers and continuously supporting the Forest for Fashion initiative. And with this, I will close this session, and be sure to stay tuned for the afternoon